Hi there, and welcome to the Cory Doctorow podcast. I'm Cory Doctorow, and today I'm reading you part 8 of my science fiction novel Eastern Standard Tribe, originally published by Tor Books in 2004 and now available for free download on craphound.com/est. In fact, available for free download since the day it first came out. I don't want to make it sound like after a while it ran out its usefulness and I made it available for free download. Always available for free download at craphound.com/est. Just got back from the East Coast. My arms are tired. I was in North Carolina. It was one of these, yet another one of these weeks where I flew to the East Coast for 2 days and turned around and came back to Los Angeles. I'm going to do it again next week. I was in North Carolina. I gave a couple of talks that were really well attended. Thank you very much to everyone who turned up, and several seminars and with the faculty and different interest groups at the University of North Carolina and at Duke. And that was really exciting and rewarding. It's very nice to meet with people in smaller groups and actually have the chance to interact rather than just pontificate, which is, too often what ends up happening when I go abroad. So that was great. I also had a great time catching up, although albeit briefly, with my old writing student from Viable Paradise, Mer Lafferty, who is the queen of podcasting and knows more about it than I ever will, and is better at it than I'll ever be. And so it was great to sit down and get a little podcasting advice and talk with her a little. Speaking of podcasting, I launched a new podcast this week. This is the podcast of my lectures at the University of Southern California in my class, Com 499, Pwned, Is Everyone on Campus a Copyright Criminal? You can get details on that by going to craphound.com or to the class blog, which is at uscpwned.blogspot.com, and just clicking on the podcast link in that left right-hand bar. My student Garrett Sargent has been recording these lectures, and he's given them all to me so that I can put them up. It's very kind of him to have done all this volunteer work, and I hope that you find them useful if you choose to tune in and subscribe to the feed. There are 6 installments to date, and there'll be, I think, either 14 or 15 in total, depending on how many lectures we end up recording. And the other news from this week, the very good news from my perspective, is that I finished a book. I mean, there's a lot of definitions of finished a book. You can write the end, and that's a kind of finishing a book, or you can get a lot of rewrite requests from your editor and finish the book, and that's the step that I've taken. And of course, there's another step, which is you can finish, proofreading and copy editing a manuscript that's been sent to you by your publisher after reviewing the galleys, and you can return them, and your publisher can sign off on them, and then the book can enter the final stages of production. That's really finishing a book, but I haven't gotten that far. Anyways, the book I finished is Little Brother, which, if you've been listening to this podcast for a while, you've heard me talk about before. This is my young adult novel about hacker kids who declare war on the Department of Homeland Security, and the new title for it is, I think, Homeland. Little Brother, the thinking was that it would not really resonate with a generation to whom Big Brother means a TV show about people living in a house together, and not a brilliant novel by George Orwell. The other possibility was Patriot Acts, which I also very much like, but I feel like it might date a little more quickly as the Patriot Act itself fades out of memory, which we can only hope it will. And it won't resonate as well for teenagers overseas, or even for teenagers here who just haven't paid enough attention to know that there is such a thing as the Patriot Act. So I think it's going to be called Homeland. Now, this leaves me in a weird spot because it means that I have no book that I'm actively working on at the moment. I mean, there are books that are unfinished that I have to do stuff on, but it's not my turn to do stuff on them. I'm waiting on other people before I can pick them up again. It's a weird spot to be in, this kind of betwixt and between. The other books, of course, one is Set Top Cop, my copyright book, which is on hold while I negotiate with a potential collaborator, someone who I really respect and admire, who I think would make it a much better book. So that's good news, but it just means that I'm not working on it at all. And then the other one is Theme Punks, which many of you will have read, syndicated on Salon last year. That's not going to be the final title. The first complete draft of Theme Punks is done. It came in at 180,000 words, and my publisher wants 140,000 words, so I'm waiting for my editor to get back to me with rewrite notes, and until then, nothing happens. Speaking of theme punks, next week I'm off to Ad Astra, the science fiction convention in Toronto, to be one of the guests of honor, which really is an actual no-fooling honor. I have been attending Ad Astra since I was 16 or 17. It was the first con I ever went to. I was a volunteer. I slept in the gopher hole on the floor in this shared hotel room with like 18 other volunteers and worked for in exchange for free admission to the event and had a wonderful time year after year after year. And I'm really looking forward to going back as a guest of honor. It really is something to have done that. At Ad Astra, the Sunburst Foundation, which administers the Sunburst Award, which is the award for best Canadian science fiction book, which was once awarded to my book, A Place So Foreign and Eight More, my short story collection from 2003 that you've heard all the stories from podcast here in this feed, won that award, and they asked me if I could donate something to their charity auction, and so I donated to them the character naming rights for to the main character in Theme Punks. There's a female character and a male character, and they're auctioning off one of the two. If the winning bidder is male, of course, then it's male, and if it's female, then it's female. So I'm really, really happy to have had the chance to have given them that in their favor. Vancouver is where I'm headed after Toronto. I stop back in LA and teach my class, and then I head off to Vancouver March 8th and 9th to speak at Simon Fraser University. There's going to be two talks, one in town and one in Burnaby. I'm having dinner with a really old friend from high school who I haven't seen since I was 18 or 19, and I'm really looking forward to that. And it's just great to catch up with old friends that way. And then I'm just before I leave, I'm having breakfast with someone who has just been a hero of mine all my life. I mean, literally since I was like 15 years old. This guy is just an amazing writer. And I wrote to him and said, I'm coming to town. We know each other slightly, and I said, we've never had a chance to sit down socially. Did you have any time? Would you have any interest in dropping by the hotel for breakfast before I head out? And he said yes, and it was like my heart leapt into my chest. I just couldn't believe it. What an amazing honor. I'm not going to name any names, but I'm really, really delighted to have this chance to catch up socially with this person who's my hero and I guess now my colleague. Just wonderful. Well, that's the news that's fit to print. I'm going to leap right into the reading now. I'm hoping to get in 3 chapters today before I have to head out, and I hope you enjoy it. Eastern Standard Tribe, Chapter 19. They let me call Gran on my second day here. Of course, Linda had already called her and briefed her on my supposed mental breakdown. I had no doubt that she'd managed to fake hysterical anxiety well enough to convince Gran that I'd lost it completely. Gran was already 4/5 certain that I was nuts. "Hi, Gran," I said. "Arthur, my God, how are you?" "I'm fine, Gran. It's a big mistake is all." "A mistake? Your lady friend called me and told me what you'd done in London. Arthur, you need help." "What did Linda say?" "She said that you threatened to kill a coworker. She said you threatened to kill her, that you had a knife. Oh, Arthur, I'm so worried." "It's not true, Gran. She's lying to you." "She told me you say that." "Of course she did. She and Fede, a guy I worked with in London, they're trying to get rid of me. They had me locked up. I had a business deal with Fede. We were selling one of my ideas to a company in New Jersey. Linda talked him into selling to some people she knows in LA instead, and they conspired to cut me out of the deal. When I caught them at it, they got me sent away. Let me guess. She told you I was going to say this too, right? Arthur, I know. You know that I'm a good guy. You raised me. I'm not nuts, okay? They just wanted to get me out of the way while they did their deal. A week or two and I'll be out again, but it'll be too late. Do you believe that you know me better than some girl I met a month ago?" "Of course I do, Arthur. But why would the hospital take you away if I wasn't crazy? I'm in here for observation. They want to find out if I'm crazy. If they're not sure, then you can't be sure, right?" "All right. Oh, I've been sick with worry." "I'm sorry, Gran. I need to get through this week and I'll be free and clear and I'll come back to Toronto." "I'm going to come down there and see you. Linda told me visitors weren't allowed. Is that true?" "No, it's not true." I thought of Gran seeing me in the ward amidst the pukers and the screamers and the droolers and the fondlers, and flinched away from the phone. "But if you're going to come down, come for the hearing at the end of the week. There's nothing you can do here now." "Even if I can't help, I just want to come and see you. It was so nice when you were here." I know. I'll be coming back soon. Don't worry." If only Gran could see me now on the infirmary examination table in 4-point restraint. Good thing she can't. A doctor looms over me. How are you feeling, Art? I've had better days, I say, with what I hope is stark sanity and humor. Aren't crazy people incapable of humor? I went for a walk and the door swung shut behind me. Well, they'll do that, the doctor said. My name is Sandor, he says, and shakes my hand in its restraint. A pleasure to meet you, I say. You're a doctor, aren't you? An M.D.? Yep, there are a couple of us around this place. But you're not a shrink of any description? Nope, how'd you guess? Bedside manner. You didn't patronize me. Dr. Sandor tries to suppress a grin, then gives up. We all do our bit, he says. How'd you get up on the roof without setting off your room alarm, anyway? If I tell you how I did it, I won't be able to repeat the trick, I say jokingly. He's swabbing down my shins now with something that stings and cools at the same time. From time to time he takes tweezers in hand and plucks some loose gravel or grit and plinks it into a steel tray on a rolling table by the sink. He's so gentle I hardly feel it. What, you never heard of doctor-patient confidentiality? Is that thing still around? Oh, sure, we had a mandatory workshop on it yesterday afternoon. Those are always a lot of fun. So you're saying you've got professional expertise in the keeping of secrets, huh? I suppose I could spill it for you, then. And I do, explaining my little hack for tricking the door into thinking that I'd left it, and I'd left and returned to the room. Huh. Now that you explain it, it's pretty obvious. That's my job, figuring out the obvious way of doing something. And we fall into talking about my job with VDT, and the discussion branches off into the theory and practice of UE, only slowing a little when he picks the crud out of the scrape down my jaw and tugs through a couple of quick sutures. It occurs to me that he's keeping me distracted, using a highly evolved skill for placating psychopaths through small talk so that they don't thrash while he's knitting their bodies back together. I decide that I don't care. I get to natter on about a subject that I'm nearly autistically fixated on, and I can do it in a context where I know that I'm sane and smart and charming and occasionally mind-blowing. And the whole thing pays for itself through EasyPass, where we collect the payments for the music downloaded while you're on the road. As I finish my spiel, I realize I've been keeping him distracted, standing there with tweezers in one hand and a swab in the other. Wow, he said. So when's all this going to happen? You'd use it, huh? Hell yeah. I've got a good 20,000 on my car right now. You're saying that I could plunder anyone else's stereo at will for free and keep it while I'm stuck in traffic because I'm what'd you call it, a super peer? A super peer? And it's all free and legal? Damn! Well, it may be a while before you see it on the East Coast. It'll probably roll out in LA first. Then San Francisco, Seattle. What? Well, why? What? It's a long story, I say. And it ends with me on the roof of a goddamn nut house on Route 128 doing a one-man tribute to the Three Stooges. Chapter 20. 3 days later, Art finally realized that something big and ugly was in the offing. Fede had repeatedly talked him out of going to Perceptronics' offices, offering increasingly flimsy excuses and distracting him by calling the hotel's front desk and sending up surprise massage therapists to interrupt Art as he stewed in his juices, throbbing with resentment at having been flown thousands of clicks while injured, to check into a faceless hotel on a faceless stretch of highway and insert his thumb into his asshole and wait for Fede, who was still in fucking London, to sort out the mess so that he could present himself at the Perceptronics Acton offices and get their guys prepped for the ever-receding meeting with Mass Pike. Jesus, Federico, what the fuck am I doing here? I know, Art, I know. Art has taken to calling Fede at the extreme ends of circadian compatibility, 3 a.m. and 11 p.m. and then noon on Fede's clock, a subtle means of making the experience just as unpleasant for Fede as it is for Art. I screwed up, Fede yawned. I screwed up and now we're both paying the price. You handled your end beautifully and I dropped mine. And I intend to make it up to you. I don't want more massages, Fede. I want to get this shit done and I want to come home and see my girlfriend. Fede tittered over the phone. What's so funny? Nothing much, Fede said. Just sit tight there for a couple more minutes, okay? Call me back once it happens and tell me what you want to do, all right? Once what happens? You'll know. It was Linda, of course, knocking on Art's hotel room door minutes later, throwing her arms, then her legs around him, banging him stupid, half on and half off the hotel room bed, riding him and then being ridden in turns, slurping and wet and energetic until they both lay sprawled on the hotel room's very nice Persian rugs, dehydrated and panting, and Art calmed Fede, and Fede told him that it could take a couple weeks to sort things out, and why didn't he and Linda rent a car and do some sightseeing on the East Coast? It's exactly what they did. Starting in Boston, where they cruised Cambridge, watching the cute nerdy boys and geeky girls wandering the streets, having heated technical debates, lugging half-finished works of technology and art through the sopping summertime, a riot of towny accents and highbrow engineer speak. Then a week in New York, where they walked until they thought their feet would give out entirely, necks cricked at a permanent upward-staring angle to gawp at the topless towers of Manhattan. The sound of Manhattan rang in their ears, a gray and deep rumble of cars and footfalls and subways and steam pipes and sirens and music and conversation and ringtones and hucksters and schizophrenic ranters, a veritable Las Vegas of cacophony, and it made Linda uncomfortable, she who was raised in the white noise susurrations of LA's freeway forests, but it made Art feel wonderful. He kept his calm switched off, though the underfoot rumble of the subway had him reaching for it 100 times a day, convinced he'd left it on vibe alert mode. They took a milk run train to Toronto, chuffing through sleepy upstate New York towns, past lakes and rolling countryside in full summer glory. Art and Linda drank ginger beer in the observation car, spiking it with rum from a flask that Linda carried in a garter that she wore for the express purpose of being able to reach naughtily up her little sundress and produce a bottle of body-temperature liquor in a nickel-plated vessel whose shiny sides were dulled by the soft oil of her thigh. Canada Customs and Immigration separated them at the border, sending Art for a full inspection, a privilege of being a Canadian citizen, and hence perennially under suspicion of smuggling goods from the tax havens of the U.S. into the country, and leaving Linda in their little Pullman cabin. When Art popped free of the bureaucracy, his life thoroughly peered into, he found Linda standing on the platform, leaning against a pillar, back arched, one foot flat against the bricks, corresponding dimpled knee exposed to the restless winds of the train yard. From Art's point of view, she was a gleaming vision skewered on a beam of late-day sunlight that made her hair gleam like licorice. Her long and lazy jaw caught the last of the sun as she talked animatedly down her calm, and Art was struck with a sudden need to sneak up behind her and run his tongue down the line that began with the knob of her mandible under her ear and ran down to the tiny half-dimple in her chin and skated onto the soft pouch of flesh under her chin and end with the tasting of her soft lips. Thought became deed. He crept up on her, smelling her new car hair products on the breeze that wafted back from her, and was about to begin his tonguing when she barked, "Fuck off! Stop calling me!" and closed her comms and stormed off trainwards, leaving Art standing on the opposite side of the pillar with a thoroughly wilted romantic urge. More carefully he followed her into the train, back to their little cabin, and reached for the palm pad to open the door when he heard her agitated, calm voice. "No, goddammit, no, not yet. You keep calling me a not ever. Do you understand?" Art opened the door. Linda was composed and neat and sweet in her plush seat, shoulders back, smile winning. "Hey, honey, did the bad customs man finally let you go?" "He did." That sounded like a doozy of a phone conversation, though. "What's wrong?" "You don't want to know," she said. "All right," Art said, sitting down opposite her, knee to knee, bending forward to plant a kiss on the top of her exposed thigh. "I don't." "Good," he said. "Good." He continued to kiss his way up her thigh. "Only—" "Yes, I think I probably do. Curiosity is one of my worst failings of character." "Really?" "Quite so," he said. He'd slid her sundress right up to the waistband of her cotton drawers, and now he worried one of the pubic hairs that poked out from the elastic with his teeth. She shrieked and pushed him away. "Someone will see," she said. "This is a border crossing, not a bordello." He sat back, but inserted a finger in the elastic before Linda straightened out her dress, so that his fingertip rested in the crease at the top of her groin. "You are naughty," he said. "And curious," Art said, giving his fingertip a playful wiggle. "I give up. That was my fucking ex," she said. "That is how I'll refer to him henceforth. My fucking ex. My fucking pain-in-the-ass, touchy-feely ex. My fucking ex who wants to have the talk, even though it's been months and months. He's figured out that I'm stateside for my calling times, and he's offered to come out and meet me and really work things out, once and for all." "Oh my," Art said. "The boy's got too much LA in him for his own good. There's no problem that can't be resolved through sufficient dialogue." We never really talked about him, Art said. Nope, we sure didn't. Did you want to talk about him now, Linda? Did you want to talk about him now, Linda? Why, yes, Art, I would. How perceptive of you. She pushed his hand away and crossed her arms and legs simultaneously. Wait, I'm confused, Art said. Does that mean you do want to talk about him, or you don't? Fine, we'll talk about him. What do you want to know about my fucking ex? Art resisted a terrible urge to fan her fires, to return the vitriol that dripped from her voice. Look, you don't want to talk about him, we won't talk about him, he managed. No, let's talk about my fucking ex, by all means. She adopted a sing-song tone and started ticking off points on her fingers. His name is Toby, he's half Japanese, half white. He's about your height, his dick is bigger, but he's better in bed. Your dick is bigger, but he's better in bed. He's a user experience designer at Lucas SGI in Studio City. He never fucking shuts up about what's wrong with this or that. We dated for 2 years, lived together for 1 year, and broke up just before you and I met. I broke it off with him. He was making me goddamn crazy, and he wanted me to come back from London to live with him. I wanted to stay out the year in England and go back to my own apartment and possibly a different boyfriend. And he made me choose, and I chose. Is that enough of a briefing for you, Arthur? That was fine, Art said. Linda's face had gone a rabid purple, madly pinched, spittle flecking off her lips as she spat out the words. Thank you. She took his hands and kissed the knuckles of his thumbs. Look, I don't like to talk about it. It's painful. I'm sorry he's ruining our holiday. I just won't take his calls anymore. How about that? I don't care, Linda. Honestly, I don't give a rat's ass if you want to chat with your ex. I just saw how upset you were, and I thought it might help if you could talk it over with me. I know, baby. I know. But I just need to work out some things all on my own. Maybe I will take a quick trip out west when talk things over with him. You can come if you want. There's some wicked bars in West Hollywood. That's okay, Art said, whipsawed by Linda's incomprehensible mood shifts. But if you need to go, go. I've got plenty of old pals to hang out with in Toronto. You're so understanding, she cooed. Tell me about your grandmother again. You're sure she'll like me? She'll love you. She loves anything that's female, of childbearing years, and in my company. She has great and unrealistic hopes of great-grandchildren. Cluck. Cluck? Just practicing my brood hand. Chapter 21. Doc Sandor's a good egg. He keeps the shrinks at bay, spending more time with me than is strictly necessary. I hope he isn't neglecting his patients, but it's been so long since I had a normal conversation, I just can't bear to give it up. Besides, I get the impression that Sandor is in a similar pit of bad conversation with psychopaths and psychotherapists, and is relieved to have a bit of a natter with someone who isn't either having hallucinations or attempting to prevent them in others. How the hell do you become a user experience guy? Sheer orneriness, I say, grinning. I was just in the right place at the right time. I had a pal in New York who was working for a biotech company that had made this artificial erectile tissue. Erectile tissue? Yeah, synthetic turtle penis. Small and pliable and capable of going large and rigid very quickly. Sounds delightful. Oh, it was actually pretty cool. You know the joke about the circumcisionist wallet made from foreskins? Sure, I heard it pre-med. He rubs it and it becomes a suitcase, right? That's the one. So these guys were thinking about maybe making drawbridges or temporary shelters, that kind of thing out of it. They even had a name for it. It was cute. Arterite. Ho, ho, ho. Yeah. So they weren't shipping a whole lot of product, to put it mildly. Then I spent a couple of weeks in Manhattan, house-sitting for my friend while he was visiting his folks in Wisconsin for Thanksgiving. He had a ton of the stuff lying around his apartment, and I would come back after walking the soles off my shoes and sit in front of the tube playing with it. I took some of it down to Madison Square Park and played with it there. I liked to hang out there because it was always full of these very cute Icelandic au pairs and their tots, and I was a respectable enough young man with about 200 words of Icelandic I'd learned from a friend's mom in high school, and they thought I was adorable, and I thought that they were blonde goddesses. So I'd gotten to be friends with one named Marta. Oh, Marta. Bookmark Marta, Sandor, and I'll come back to her once we become better acquainted. Anyways, Marta was in charge of machinery and avarice, the spoiled monsterkinder of a couple of BBD&O senior managers who'd vaulted from art school to VPdom in 1 year when most of the eminence grise had got power-thraxed. Machinery was 3 and liked to bang things against other things rhythmically while hollering atonally. Avarice was 5, not toilet-trained and prone to tripping. I get Marta novelty coffee from the Stinkbucks on 23rd, and we drink it together while Machinery and Avarice engaged in terrible, life-threatening play with the other kids in the park. I showed Marta what I had, and though I was tactful enough not to call it synthetic turtle penis, because while Marta was earthy, she wasn't that earthy, and truth be told, it got me kind of hot to watch her long, pale blue fingers fondling the soft tissue, then triggering the circuit that hardened it. Then machinery comes over and snatches the thing away from Marta and starts pounding on Avarice, taking unholy glee in the way the stuff alternately softened and stiffened as he squeezed it. Avarice wrestled it away from him and tore off for a knot of kids, and by the time I got there, they were all crowded around her, spellbound. I caught a cab back to my buddy's apartment and grabbed all the arterite I could lay hands on and brought it back to the park and spent the next couple hours running an impromptu focus group, watching the kids and their bombshell nannies play with it. By the time Marta touched my hand with her long, cool fingers and told me it was time for her to get the kids home for their nap, I had 25 toy ideas, about 8 different ways to make the stuff useful for clothing fasteners, and a couple of miscellaneous utility uses, like a portable crib. So I ran it down for my pal that afternoon over the phone, and he calmed his boss, and I ended up eating Thanksgiving dinner at his boss's house in Westchester. Weren't you worried he'd rip off your ideas and not pay you anything for them? Sandor, spellbound by the story, unconsciously unrolling and re-rolling an ace bandage. Didn't even cross my mind. Of course, he tried to do just that, but it wasn't any good. They were engineers. They had no idea how normal people interact with their environments. The stuff wasn't self-revealing. They'd added a million cool features in a manual an inch thick. After prototyping for 6 months, they called me in and offered me a 2% royalty on any products I designed for them. That must have been worth a fortune, says Sandor. You'd think so, wouldn't you? Actually, they folded before they shipped anything. Blew through all their capital on R&D, didn't have anything left to productize their tech with. But my buddy did get a gig with another company that was working on new kitchen stuff made from one-way osmotic materials, and he showed them my stuff I'd done with Arterite, and all of a sudden, I had a no-fooling career. Damn, that's cool. You betcha. It's all about being an advocate for the user. I observe what users do and how they do it, figure out what they're trying to do, and then boss the engineers around, getting them to remove the barriers they've erected, because engineers are basically all high-functioning autistics who have no idea how normal people do stuff. The doctor chuckles. Look, he says, producing a nicotine pacifier, one of those fake cigs that gives you the oral fix, and the chemical fix, and the habit fix, without the noxious smoke. It's not my area of specialty, but you seem like a basically same individual, modulo your rooftop adventures. Certainly, you're not like most of the people we've got here. What are you doing here? Doc Sandor is young. Younger even than me, I realize. Maybe 26. I can see some fancy tattoo work poking out of the collar of his shirt, see the telltale remnant of a fashionable haircut and his grown-out shag. He's got to be the youngest staff member I've met here, and he's got a fundamentally different affect from the zombies in lab coats who maintain the zombies in the felt slippers. So I tell him my story, the highlights anyway. The more I tell him about Linda and Fede, the dumber my own actions sound to me. Why the hell did you stick with this Linda anyway? Sandor says, sucking on his pacifier. The usual reasons, I guess, I say, squirming. Let me tell you something, he says. He's got his feet up on the table now, hands laced behind his neck. It's the smartest thing my dad ever said to me, just as my high school girl and me were breaking up before I went away to med school. She was nice enough, but, unstable. I gotten to the point where I ducked and ran for cover every time she disagreed with me, ready for her to lose her shit. So my dad took me aside, put his arm around me, and said, Sandor, you know I like that girlfriend of yours, but she is crazy. Not a little crazy, really crazy. Maybe she won't be crazy forever, but if she gets better, it won't be because of you. Trust me, I know this. You can't fuck a crazy girl sane, son. I can't help smiling. Truer words, I say, but harsh. Harsh is relative, he says. Contrast it with, say, getting someone committed on trumped-up evidence. It dawns on me that Doc Sandor believes me. It dawns on me that you believe me. He gnaws fitfully at his pacifier. Well, why not? You're not any crazier than I am, that much is clear to me. You have neat ideas. Your story's plausible enough. I get excited. Is this your professional opinion? Sorry, no, I am not a mental health professional, so I don't have professional opinions on your mental health. It is, however, my amateur opinion. Oh well. So, where are you at now, vis-a-vis the hospital? Well, they don't tell me much, but as near as I can make out, I am stuck here semi-permanently. The court found me incompetent and ordered me held until I was. I can't get anyone to explain what competency consists of or how I achieve it. When I try, I get accused of being difficult. Of course, escaping onto the roof is a little beyond difficult. I have a feeling I'm going to be in pretty deep shit. Do they know about the car? The car? In the parking lot, the one that blew up. Doc Sandor laughs hard enough that his pacifier shoots across the room and lands in a hazmat bucket. You son of a bitch! That was you? Yeah, I say, and drum my feet against the tin cupboards under the examination table. That was my fucking car! Oh, Christ, I'm sorry, I say. God! No, 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 he says, fishing in his pocket and unwrapping a fresh pacifier. It's okay. Insurance. I'm getting a bike. Vroom, vroom. What a coincidence, though, he says. Coincidence. He's making disgusting hamster cage noises, grinding away at his pacifier. Sandor, do you sometimes sneak out into the landing and have a cigarette? Use a bit of tinfoil for your ashtray? Prop the door open behind you? Why do you ask? 'Cause that's how I got out onto the roof. Oh, shit, he says. It's our secret, I say. I can tell him I don't know how I got out. I'm incompetent, remember? You're a good egg, Art, he says. How the hell are we going to get you out of here? Hey, what? No, really. There's no good reason for you to be here, right? You're occupying valuable bed space. Well, I appreciate the sentiment, but I have a feeling that as soon as you turn me loose, I'm going to be doped up to the tits for a good long while. He grimaces. Right, right. They like their meds. Are your parents alive? What? No, they're both dead. Aha. Died suddenly? Oh, yeah. Dad drowned. Mom fell. Shh. Mom died suddenly. She was taking Haldol when it happened. A low anti-anxiety dose, right? Huh? Well, probably she was. Probably she had a terrible drug interaction. Sudden death syndrome. It's hereditary. And you say she fell? Seizure. We'll sign you up for a PET scan. That'll take at least a month to set up. You could be an epileptic and not even know it. Shaking the radioisotopes loose for a scan from the AEC. Whoa, that's a week's worth of paperwork right there. No Thorazine for you, young man. Not until we're absolutely sure it won't kill you dead where you stand. The hospital council gave us all a very stern lecture on this very subject not a month ago. I'll just make some notes in your medical history. He picked up his comm and scribbled. Never would have thought of that, I say. I'm impressed. It's something I've been playing with for a little while now. I think that psychiatric care is a good thing, of course, but it could be better implemented. Taking away prescription pads would be a good start. Or you could keep public stats on which doctors had prescribed how much of what and how often. Put them in a chart on the ward where the patients' families could see them. Ooh, that's nasty, he says. I love it. We're supposed to be accountable, right? What else? Give the patients a good reason to wear their tracking bracelets. Redesign them so they gather stats on mobility and vitals and track them against your meds and other therapies. Create a dating service that automatically links patients who respond similarly to therapies so they can compare notes. Ooh, by comparing location data from other trackers, you could get stats on which therapies make people more sociable just by counting the frequency with which patients stop and spend time in proximity to other patients. It'd give you empirical data with which to track your own progress. That's great stuff. Damn, how do you do that? I felt a familiar swelling of pride. I like it when people understand how good I am at my job. Working at VDT was hard on my ego. After all, my job there was to do a bad job, to design the worst user experiences that plausibility would allow. God, did I really do that for 2 whole goddamn years? It's my job, I say, and give a modest shrug. What do you charge for work like that? Why, are you in the market? Who knows, maybe after I figure out how to spring you, we can go into biz together, redesigning the nuthatches.